Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first episode of the evolution of Loki as we build to Loki, which releases in about 6 weeks, where we're going to go through each movie that Loki was in and talk about his character. For this series, I am joined by the trio of Destiny, Badguy Jack, and the Mark. How are you guys doing?
We're actually the trio of the marvelous trio, but yes, we are here. I can't wait to talk about this. Loki, who's been a big part of the MCU, and he's getting his own show, so this should be great. I can't wait to talk about him.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Thor this week. Next week will be the Avengers, and then we'll do Thor 2, Thor Ragnarok, Avengers Infinity War, and then end with Avengers Endgame before Loki comes out on, I believe, June 11th is the release day. So we're going to talk about Loki a lot the next probably 12 to 14 weeks, depending on how long Loki is.
We're going to be talking Loki, and we're going to be low-key hyping up the next show.
Yeah. Well, let's get
everything.
Yeah. Let's get into this movie. We got Thor, released in 2011, directed by Kenneth Branagh. I went back and rewatched this not too long ago when I watched every single MCU movie back to back. And I loved this movie a lot more than I remembered liking it. I used to hate it, and it actually ended up, I believe, in my top 10 MCU films. So before we talk about Loki, let's get a quick reaction from everybody on this movie. God of Fireballs, Jack, let's throw it to you.
Me. I'm so excited because that was me. I don't think it's. You said top 10. I don't think it makes my top 10. But it's definitely wasn't a bad introduction to Thor, I guess is the best way to put it. I mean, it's one of those, I guess, hit or miss or something like. I don't know how to put it, but it doesn't make top 10, but it wasn't really bad because I ended up seeing the sequel, which I thought was a lot better. I prefer the third movie, but I got to go with the sequel. Yes. That's my call. Go ahead. Keep talking.
Tesseract, how'd you feel?
Okay, well, for the first episode of Thor, I thought it was pretty good. I like the way that they introduced the relationship between Loki and Thor, as far as Loki being the jealous brother above all else. Mm-hmm. So most of all, just the conflict between those two and how they could just continue it onto other movies. And I feel like he was, he was pretty badass in this movie. You know what I mean? Like I think that it pretty much just showed his viciousness, and I think that honestly, like it's really difficult to determine the love for this character from this movie. Mm-hmm. He's hardcore heel, but yeah, it just pretty much just shows his backstory. So I like it.
Yeah, talking about Loki in this movie specifically, this is straight up bad guy Loki, which is what we had for the first two movies, pure bad guy, and even for a degree, we had that in Thor: The Dark World. This was, they portray him as sort of a good guy at the beginning, and then we learn that he's just a backstabbing God of Mischief. Mm-hmm. And he's pulling his little strings in order to become the king of Asgard instead of Thor. And it's a very interesting character. Most people, I feel like, would consider Loki to be the best of the MCU villains, or at least up there with Thanos and Killmonger. I would probably put him as my number one because he's one of the only ones that has real depth. And that's why this movie is really good. They built this villain much better than the previous movies, Captain America, Iron Man 2, and Hulk. They did not do a good job of really setting up a villain for the future. And this villain was so popular that he's now getting his own show. So, that's why I love it. Why I think that what they did with Loki in this movie is so good is it starts this very long, very complex character arc.
Longevity too. He has a lot of longevity. You think about not only just Thor 1, Thor 2, 3, Avengers, the first Avengers, and Infinity War. He's been around for a long period of time. And like you said, they flushed out his character, not even just with this this movie, but then along the way, you get to see more about him. Mm-hmm. So I can see why he would make top 5. This movie alone, seeing how he was able to manipulate people and be able to, because the thing was he wanted to be on the throne. You know, he wanted to take what Thor got, and Thor gets banished, and now he's, you know, he's slithering in there, slithering in there a little bit, little by little. Loki, I think one of you guys just mentioned how ingenious he is and how he's able to manipulate the system and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's called the God of Mischief for a reason, right? That's what he does, is play the tricks on people's minds. He uses his projections. That's what this movie really feels like, is he's kind of like politicking his way to the top.
Absolutely. It's almost like this is entertainment, but don't it sound too close to wrestling? So yeah, that's exactly what he does. He does everything to try to get on the good side of Odin. Does every little thing, every little trick, and I don't know. It's just fun. It's just funny to me thinking about all that.
I mean, it makes sense. He's very much Owen Hart, because. Like, you know, basically trying to get curry favor of Stu Hart type of thing. You know, but the reality of the situation is just that he is. I mean, what is it called? The ice people, the ice person. He's an adopted.
Yeah, people, right. He was like an ice baby.
He doesn't really have the ability to take the throne. Therefore, you know, I feel like at least from what I hope is that they dive a little bit more into that in the series. Because I feel like I could be wrong, but I feel like this is the only movie where they really kind of dive into that a little bit. The fact that he's an adopted son, he's from another planet, and he's from another, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's one of the other people and blah, 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 and all of that. But like, you know, I wonder if in his future they dive back to that.
Yeah. Well, it seems like this movie was really the only time they bring it up, and we'll talk about it more. There's like little subtle references where they say we're brothers, and he says actually stepbrothers in Thor Ragnarok. I believe Thor says the same thing in Avengers 1. They kind of make those jokes back and forth to each other.
They do.
And I mean, they could bring it up in this Loki series, although I doubt it. I think they're going to focus on this whole time traveling stuff. So that's where I would guess is what they're going to go with in the series. But I would like them to delve a little bit more into the Frost Giant aspect, because it's delved into very much here, and they talk about it a lot and how that affects who he is and how it just makes him even more angry with Odin and Helga. I believe their mom's name's Helga, right?
Yeah, it's Helga.
By Rene Russo.
Not Helga Pataki from Hey Arnold, but yeah, I think it's Helga.
Yeah, so they talk about that and how it kind of fuels a little bit of hatred towards his parents, and that they didn't tell him. And they just didn't really dive into that anymore. It's like they almost forgot about it immediately after.
Mm-hmm. I hope that they definitely do dive more into it, because I mean, I personally resonated with it because I have a half brother, but it doesn't feel that way. You know what I mean? And you could see the dynamic when Thor never looked at Loki like he was half or step or anything. He didn't treat him that way.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, let's go ahead and wrap up this first episode. We'll end off with where Loki is. The last thing we see is he's fallen away into space after the Rainbow Bridge is destroyed. So we're going to track the evolution of Loki. So let's all figure out where he is. Are we all in agreement that he is in far heel stage right now?
I just know he fell off Rainbow Road. So I think that's terrible when you fall off Rainbow Road. So yeah, I would be a hill too if I fell off Rainbow Road.
Yeah,
yeah.
Excuse me. He's
good
right now. Hardcore right now.
Yeah, he's in pure villain mode.
He's full villain. I mean, he was villain throughout the whole thing anyway, but it was clear as day when he fell off. Like, yeah, I'm the bad guy.
Yeah.
Hey, I said it. He's the bad guy. So yeah.
Yeah, totally. Full on Razor Ramon.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on this first episode of The Evolution of Loki, where we talked about Loki in the movie Thor from 2011, the original Thor film, one of those films in phase 1 of the MCU. Tune in next week where we're going to talk about The Avengers. Of course, one of the most popular MCU movies. We're going to talk about that one next week. Peace.